My doctor had given me 6 months to live. Literally was in his office when he gave me that news. My liver was failing. My liver enzymes were at 11,412, and they're supposed to be at 400. He's like, you have 6 months to live if you continue drinking the way you are. I'm like, cool, can I use your restroom? I went to the bathroom and drank vodka. That's where I was at. Growing up, I grew up in McLeod, California. That's where I was born and raised. I had a loving family. Favorite memory, definitely my dog Boots. We loved him. He was our protector. When we used to get in trouble, my parents would call out our names and we always knew we were in trouble. He would come running and come save me and my sister, which was pretty awesome. My dad came and picked us up from California. We were in Colorado with my aunt and uncle, which was my mom's sister, and we thought it was kind of unusual that my mom didn't come with him because it's my mom's sister. And he said, when we get home, we're gonna have a talk. And when we got home that night, my mom wasn't home, and we're like, where's mom? And my dad was talking to us, and he goes, well, your mom and I are no longer together. And my sister and I were like, what do you mean you're not together? Like, that doesn't make any sense to us. Like, your mom and dad. And he said that we got a divorce. Your mom doesn't live here anymore. We had no idea there was any trouble in paradise. My parents always were loving and kind towards us, never saw any problems, never fought in front of us. So we had no idea that it was coming. As a teenager, those situations in my life, they affected me in a sense. Like, I wanted to escape because I didn't know how to deal with them. As a teenager, I escaped into books. I loved adventure. One of my favorite books was actually kind of a sad book. It was called Uncle Tom's Cabin, and that was probably like my favorite book of all time. I never partied in high school. I never had any interest in it. I always asked questions. I'm like, what's it like? And people are like, you have to experience it to understand what it's like. I'm like, oh, I'm good. I don't want to do that. And then I moved to Arizona to go to college. The first week I was there, we went to a party, and they were like, oh, here's a beer. I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it. I'm like, this is disgusting. You guys have anything else? And they bought me a bottle of Southern Comfort, and I was like, ooh, that's pretty tasty. And then from that point on, I started drinking pretty heavy and continued to drink for the next 26 years. How I met my ex-wife was kind of a really fun story. We actually both worked at Red Robin. My now ex-wife, but at the time my wife, was a believer, and she helped introduce me to the Lord, as well as my friend Nathaniel Edwardson, who's the pastor at the Stirring. They ran a thing called Celebration, and they brought me to the Lord one day. They asked me to come to this concert because they knew I loved music. And I was like, all right, I'll go to this concert. And I watched this lady bawling her eyes out, and she was still praying to the Lord. And I was like, man, what's wrong with this lady? Like, she's crying, but she's still worshiping the Lord. There's a guy standing next to her dancing up a storm, reaches over, lays his hand on her, and starts praying with her. And the concert's still going on, and I'm like, man, these people have something I don't, because this lady's upset, and this guy's praying over her, and he's still dancing with her, and he's still having a good time while she's crying, and there's all these other people just worshiping the Lord, and I'm like, I'm missing something that all these people have. I got home that night with my ex-wife, and she was talking to me. She's like, so what'd you think? I'm like, that was pretty amazing. It was really powerful. And she's like, do you want to say the Lord's Prayer with me? And I'm like, I would love to. And like, I accepted Jesus that night, and from that point forward, we started going to church together. Eventually, after years of marriage, I was working really, really hard. I was working between 12 and 16 hours a day, taking care of our entire household. We were raising 3 girls. She decided to go a different route with us, and one day she came home and said, this just isn't working, and she decided to file for divorce, and we separated our ways. That impacted me in a very negative manner. My drinking began to escalate even worse, and I was drinking pretty heavy before that. It began to affect my jobs. It began to affect my living situations. It began to affect every aspect of my life. Lost my job at Safeway in Anderson, and I had decided to literally just continuously drink for about a month straight. I don't remember between April and May of 2018. I was completely blacked out the entire time. And the last time I was arrested, officer found me walking down North Street in Anderson, and I chugged a pint of vodka in front of him. He asked me to blow on the breathalyzer machine, and my BAC was .383 and climbing. He told me he decided he wanted to take me to the hospital, but for some reason they decided to take me to jail instead. They released me for some unknown reason. They wanted me to go to the hospital, but I decided not to, and I decided to try to walk home. I made it about 8 miles home, made it almost to Kent's Market out on Airport Road, and I started to have a seizure. And I started praying. I was like, God, just let me make it home, because I knew I had a bottle of vodka at home, and I was starting to go through withdrawals, even though I was super intoxicated. I couldn't take any steps forward, and then I hear a small, still voice in my head say, lay down and rest, my son. And I was like, what? I'm like, no, I can make it. I can make it. And then I hear it again, no, I said lay down and rest, my son. I tried to take a step forward, and then a hand on my left shoulder grabs me and physically slams me into the ground and puts me on the ground. I'm laying there and I look up and I'm facing into oncoming traffic, and I'm like, I'm gonna get hit by a car. There's nobody around me, there's no cars, there's no people, there's no physical presence of anybody around me, and something gently rolls me down the side of the road and down an embankment into a ditch. I wake up about 3 or 4 hours later with a bunch of rocks hitting me on the side of the face, and I'm like, ow, like who's hitting me? And it happened to be a gentleman driving by doing a fire break for PG&E with a riding lawnmower, and he stops and he finds me. He calls 911, the ambulance comes, they get me into the ambulance, they find out that I had a seizure, they get me to Mercy Hospital, and I spend about 5.5 days there. And that's when Mercy told me that they were gonna release me to go home, not where I thought that I was gonna be going home. They said, we're gonna release you to the care of the Good News Rescue Mission. I don't even remember signing up for the program. I don't remember it to this day. I have no idea. Finally, Andrew Jessen had an interview with me. He's like, are you still interested in even doing the program? I was like, sure, I guess. I don't know. I didn't even know I was actually in pre-program still. The thing that I believe is most successful and what may help me overcome and become successful is God's love for me first and foremost, hard work and dedication, and literally it's your desire to want to succeed and to be successful. I tried being sober before and it didn't work. I'd been into a program before and seen how this program was working differently in the guys' lives versus how other programs had worked. Besides being faith-based, it had structure, it had guidance, it had people who cared, and it showed people what the Lord's going to do in your life to make things better for you. My relationship with my children before, when I was on the street and when I was drinking super heavy, was very damaged. I was more concerned about the bottle. I loved them to death, but like my concern was making sure I had a bottle, making sure I had a beer, making sure I had alcohol in my system. Now my relationship with them is phenomenal. They are my priority. They come first. God comes first. They come second. I come third. I co-parent with my ex-wife now. We get along phenomenally. We have a very healthy, caring relationship. We share custody, which I didn't have before. The blessings have come out immensely compared to what I used to have 2-3 years ago. Life has changed dramatically since I've become sober.
That's awesome.
This program has been phenomenal for my life.
Good.
For sure. I'm glad I stuck with it because there's multiple times I could have just bounced. So,
Yeah.
no, God has done amazing things in my life since this program.
I was Shawn's arresting officer many times. I've seen him go from rock bottom to a life he and his family should be proud of. I'm both humbled and honored to have been part of that journey. Well done, Shawn.